So before we start to talk about how conservationists found themselves in the conservation industry, I want to talk a little bit about a project that my friend Nyla and I created last year in 2020 to help women in North Sumatra find their journey and their path into the conservation industry with a supportive network of people around them. As you can tell by season 1 of the podcast or my book, I kind of struggled in North Sumatra to be a female conservationist because the pressures on women are so different there. And Nyla, as someone who is local to North Sumatra, understands the pressures even more than I do, as she lives there every day. So we put our heads together and we decided we actually wanted to do something. And so we created the Shakandi Women Empowerment Fellowship. And Shakandi means heroine because we believe that all female conservationists are just heroes, just working so tirelessly for saving local landscapes and species. So last year we were able to send 4 women on this fellowship, and it was full of local speakers, experiences, education opportunities, but most importantly it was creating this safe space, this network of like-minded women, and it was totally run by Nyla, so it was all in their language, all local, and it was just something that I felt really proud of. We would really love to run it again this year with more women involved, so we'd love your help to make it happen. The Patreons over at Lonely Conservationist Patreon have already raised $400, but I think we can do a little bit better than that. So if you want to help see the Shakandi Women Empowerment Fellowship come into fruition in 2021, even bigger and better than ever, feel free to become a Patreon yourself over at patreon.com/lonelyconservationist, or you can even find a PayPal donate button over at the website at lonelyconservationist.com. So any support you could give us to help women in conservation in North Sumatra become the best and brightest and most happiest they can be would be really incredible. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into the episode. Hello everybody, and welcome to How to Conserve Conservationists, the podcast, season 2, all about you. I am Jessie.
And I'm Todd.
Yay! We don't have a weird intro anymore.
Oh, you just made it weird.
Well, everything about this podcast is usually really weird, so it's just teaming with a theme. But today's episode is number 6, and it's all about alternative pathways into conservation. And we actually did what was it called? The Lonely Conservationists. We did a workshop and a discussion about this last year with Gus and Maria, and it was one of the most popular topics that we had, because I think a common theme for a lot of conservationists is feeling like if you haven't been a purist conservationist, like you weren't born into it when you were 3 years old like I was, and you had a career or you studied something else before getting into conservation, and oftentimes it might make you feel like you don't have enough experience, or you're not as legit of a conservationist as others you may perceive others to be. So I think this is a really important topic to touch on again, because this has just resonated with so many conservationists in the community. And I know we all know Todd, our resident now conservationist, former IT professional, can also relate to this as well. He is currently rocking a meerkat shirt to further add to the conspiracy theory that Todd is a dedicated professional conservationist.
When did I become a conservationist?
When you got bullied into it after the podcast last year.
Mm.
Some people thought you were more of a conservationist than some of their friends who have tried to be in the conservation industry. So it just goes to show that if Todd can be respected as a conservationist, then you probably can as well. So I think I've actually learned a lot from everyone in the community, and the value of having other skills and bringing other skills to the table, because I was a purist conservationist and I never took the time to get like business skills or I don't know, random other skills that you might need in the industry. But this year,
any type of math.
Yeah. Until I did the business incubator in 2019, and it was like entering a whole new world. And now this year I'm doing a certificate in training and accreditation, because I feel like I've learned from Lonely Conservationists that conservation skills are good,
but you need some specialty other skills to be able to really do something amazing with your conservation skills. And I found that my passion was speaking to people and teaching and training.
Okay, so truth be told, I have actually stopped that certificate. I don't do it anymore, and it's because I got a job as a bush kindy teacher, which took up more time than I thought. Being a teacher, even though like I'm a facilitator, I guess I'm not really teaching them in a more formal capacity. They're teaching me as much as I'm teaching them. But it takes up a lot of time to be a teacher. You have to plan out what you're gonna do. You have to put a lot of time and energy and resources into it. So although I stopped learning how to teach, I started just getting out there and doing it. So although I stopped doing that certificate, my point still remains. I'm not a purist conservationist, like saving newts or anything. I'm doing things like teaching and putting skills that I have that are external to what I learned in a conservation class to use.
And I found that I've just been inspired by the people in this community to get these other skills so I can take my career to the next level. So
I can't remember where I heard it, but you want to be a pie person.
A pie person?
Yeah.
Have fingers in a lot of pies?
So most people who know a lot about something,
yeah,
like their knowledge is T-shaped.
Yeah.
So very shallow across the board on the top there.
Yeah.
And then the capital T. So you've got a line, deep knowledge of one topic.
Yeah.
Instead, you want to be the pi, the mathematical pi symbol.
With two drop downs.
With two drop downs. So you have multiple deep knowledge that aren't next to each other.
Mm.
And they're like the most useful people on the planet.
Yeah, and this is why I feel so bad for everyone who thinks, oh, I've come into conservation late. I was too busy focusing on stats. I was too busy focusing on engineering. I wish I was you, because I've learned over my career that people who are good at electrical engineering, or maths or whatever, if you combine those skills with conservation skills, how you can apply tangible solutions to conservation problems is like way more effective than someone who just studied conservation. So be a pie person. And the pie people that we are going to be learning from today are the blog authors Amber and Lynette, and as per usual I will have their blogs in the show notes so you can read along if you haven't read their blogs already. And I wonder, like, so we're filming all of the podcasts, we're filming them before March so we can have them done after the wedding. But I'm really wondering how many of you, since listening to this season of the podcast, have started to read more of the blogs or have uncovered blogs that you hadn't read before. I really, really hope that this season opens your mind to a lot of the amazing authors and the stories they have to share on the website. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, the first blog is by Amber, who I would never have her story. Because this, I don't know, did I talk about this in the last podcast, in the last season, that I got 4 out of 30 on a fractions test? What? Like, maths is not my strong suit at all.
Well, the fact that you say 4 out of 30 suggests to me you understand fractions to some degree.
Well, that's how they give you the grade.
You get your fractions grade back and you don't even comprehend your answer, your results.
Yeah. I don't know, like... So for this TAFE course I'm doing, I had to pass a literacy and numeracy test to like get in, and I got full marks on the literacy test and I got only 3 out of 5 on the numeracy test, so my fractions are still a bit rusty. But yeah, so we're going to talk about Amber, who started off with a love for nature but ended up getting into a bit of a career in maths. Not a career, actually. She just had a university tangent into a maths degree.
Yeah, which I found very interesting, because if I was struggling, she was struggling with her initial degree, almost definitely because of like unrelated mental health issues.
Well, she said she moved away for her, so she started off doing a degree in zoology because she loved nature and she had good experiences in nature, and that was what she was passionate about. But to do that degree, she moved location, so she didn't know anyone. She was in a brand new place, and then she felt not mentally healthy and ended up getting diagnosed with anxiety disorder. So she thought that maybe her degree had something to do with the way she was feeling.
Understandably.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, obviously, like, the shock of a whole different lifestyle and different place would probably play into it as well.
So she says, I'm going to read a little paragraph, as we do, from Amber.
I wasn't finished, but go on.
Do you want to say anything before I talk about getting into maths?
No.
Okay. Okay, so she says, maths was my best subject at school, and people kept telling me that I was guaranteed a good job and good money with a maths degree, so I went for it. It was super scary as a decision to make, and I was worried that everyone would see me as a failure, but I felt like it was my only choice. I went back to sixth form, resat some A-levels, and tried some new ones, and I got accepted to study mathematics at a really weird name university, Aberystwyth University? Do you think that's what it is?
There's a T in there somewhere for some reason.
Aberystwyth? If you're from England, please correct me.
Yeah. we cannot speak English.
We do not have words like that here. But yeah, so basically she heard from her friends and family that she could get more money if she did a maths degree. It was her best subject at school, so she thought maybe this was a better decision for her.
Which surprises me, because in my personal experience, most people who do something like a math degree really struggle at it and then drop out and then do something a bit quote unquote more cushy, like a soft science like biology.
Are you speaking from experience?
No. I never studied biology.
Yeah, but you didn't do well in your maths degree at uni.
Yeah. Uni math is like, it's really interesting concepts that I would happily sit down and learn about, but when you frame it as you need to learn this for a test, it's suddenly a different ballgame.
Yeah. Todd was asked not to complete his university degree because of his math. Was it math?
Yeah.
Yeah. So props to Amber for doing better than Todd.
You just nonchalantly like, oh, I'll get an easy course.
Like maths.
Just does math and does super well at it.
Because when I was reading this, I was trying to think about what math careers you could have, and all I could think of was being an accountant. And that's kind of a meme nowadays where it's like, if you're a sex worker or an influencer or something where you like people ask you what you do and you can't really easily explain it, a lot of people are like, just say you're an accountant. But then somebody did that, and then the person who asked was also an accountant, and was like, oh, what firm do you work in? And they're like, oh shit, I don't know. I never got this far.
I've never had to explain my job this much.
Yeah.
A fictional job.
Yeah. So what other maths jobs are there? I guess
maybe it's different in different countries, but I know here, like, as interesting as it is, it doesn't immediately lead to career opportunities.
Just
the same way like being a doctor or lawyer does.
I guess, like, I can imagine maths playing into being a architect or an engineer, but then there's degrees just for engineering and architecture where maths is just subjects. Like, I can't really think of just a maths purist job.
Apparently in America, anyone who does mathematics in uni, they immediately get a job with like the CIA or like, you know, the spy agencies. Because they do like cryptography and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So they want all the math.
They could take your job.
Take what?
Secret security jobs.
Yeah.
Todd's not in the CIA, by the way. Or maybe he is.
Yeah. Well, everyone, I don't know if it's true or not. Apparently, most people who are in the spy agencies, they are told to tell their family and friends that they work in IT at a different company.
There you go.
It's a common alibi. For the same reason as accounting, because no one's going to ask you about your job. Oh, with the computers and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, just internet things.
Yeah.
So, basically she completed her maths degree, but inevitably hated it the whole time. Because just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's enjoyable to just focus purely on it for a long time, for 3 years or however long a degree takes. So when she graduated, she was told she was going to have all these jobs, but then she had no idea what to do next. And obviously if you hated your degree, it's not going to be really inspiring to just get into a mathematical job. So she was having a bit of a think about what she wanted to do. But she ended up deciding to change back into a degree in conservation and biology, but with another university who was partnered with Chester Zoo, which is a place she used to visit all the time. So it just seemed like she was in a better mental state. She already had a degree under her belt. She knew that she could do it from like a studying standpoint. So she decided to give it another go. But as I was saying before, she felt as if, because she wasn't a purist conservationist and she spent all this time on her maths degree, she felt a bit behind because she's never studied abroad. She'd never studied in like a wildlife sanctuary.
You couldn't give her any animal on Earth and immediately expect her to answer like 50 fun facts about that animal.
Well, I don't know, like the thing about conservation is a lot of people read a lot in their spare time, and if she's already hanging out in nature, she probably had a really in-depth understanding about the world around her and nature. She just didn't have those very specialized hands-on experiences of fieldwork. But her edge, this is where the maths degree comes into play. This is where I wish I was a bit jealous of this.
You had personal struggles.
I wish I had her skills because she had a maths degree, she wasn't bogged down in the statistics of the degree. She wasn't bogged down in using R. She wasn't bogged down in the nitty-gritty data analysis because she had a freaking maths degree, which meant she could just focus on all the fun stuff, which is like a life hack. Like, I think a lot of conservationists, including myself, we love doing all the field work, we like doing all the fun stuff, learning about plants and animals, and then it comes to stats and we just cry for like hours. So the fact that Amber could avoid that trauma of statistics because she just done a whole degree and understood it, like that is amazing for Amber.
That is actually, it reminds me of someone I knew in high school who did the final year of high school twice.
Yeah.
1 year was all the normal subjects except for math.
Yeah.
And then he did another year of it just math because he knew it would take 100% of his attention to like get through this one class.
Yeah.
But like wanted to be able to do all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
so having to split up and like learning about the math side, but also like the thing you're applying it to at the same time, it can be difficult.
I swear, I'm not that angsty, but when it comes to stats, I think I have this thing where like,
I think you have a legitimate phobia of
math.
I
have a phobia of numbers. Whenever I think
not
of
even
numbers,
math, just numbers, my
brain shuts down and my brain empties and it's just a fog of nothing, and then I freak out that I can't even think of literally anything. And like, you're in a store and you see like, 40% off sale, and I know how to work it out on a calculator, but I know some people who can just like work it out in their head and like approximate what kind of like cost a shirt would be or whatever.
Yeah. It
just freaks me out. Like I wish I had more skill. But actually, funnily enough, 2 years ago I worked in a fruit and veg store where I had to work, like if there was not enough broccoli, I might have to subtract that amount from their total bill or something. And I wrote down, I didn't have a calculator, and I wrote down like the long subtraction where you have like 3 digits subtracted 3 digits, and I totally forgot what you did when there was a smaller number on the top. And so I came back home and I like was determined to learn how to subtract again properly.
Yeah.
And then we were just sitting on the couch for the rest of the day watching subtraction maths YouTube videos. Yeah. But it's like something that's so easy and you do it in primary school, and I just totally like did not hold on to a single second of it. So this is where I think Amber is going to have such huge success, especially if she stays in science, is the stats, which hold so many conservationists back, is not even going to bother her at all.
Yeah.
I just think that's incredible, and Amber has a really bright future ahead of her. Because like,
legit,
no matter if you're in science or if you just do field work where you're out measuring things, or if you have to build enclosures and you need like trigonometry to work out like the difference.
Well, can I just point out like the maths she studied would have been a bit different than just trigonometry and fractions.
Yeah, I know. But like having a really good foundational understanding of maths, and even if it's like you spend all your time doing like really complicated equations, knowing like a good foundational knowledge is going to help you in whatever career you do. I know, because every time it comes up, I just suffer. I just cry. So yeah, that's Amber's story, and that's a really good one to showcase just how having other skills really help you. Even though she didn't even have a maths career, even just in like the university degree sense, just because you've done a lot of degrees and you couldn't make up your mind or you changed for whatever reason, it doesn't mean you're worse off for not just doing conservation the whole time. Like there's perks to it. So our next author is Lynette, and she is actually, she's so amazing. I wrote about her in the book. I don't know if she knows this, Lynn. I don't know if you've read the book, but in the skills chapter, I talk about you because she's just the most wonderful woman. So when I was doing my business incubator, I was really struggling with the business side and I was about to give up. I was literally about to throw the towel in. But Lynette messaged me on Instagram like, oh, if you ever need a chat, like give me a call. I was really hesitant and nervous because I was just scared by the whole process, but I gave her a call anyway. And she was the one that said, like, think about how many skills there are in the conservation industry and how many skills you need to acquire to do your job, from learning first aid to the stats to the writing to the speaking. Like, nobody is just a conservationist. And she's the one that really changed the way I looked about conservation. So I think it's going to be a really good time to look into her journey and all the different peaks and troughs that took her into her very niche experience in conservation. So Lynette is English, and she grew up in a little small town where there was a lot of rolling hills and forests and orchids and badgers and little critters running around. And I wanted to read this paragraph because I think this encapsulates, like, I think what you think of when you grow up, how you don't think that there needs to be conservationists, because when you grow up in like the hills and with the forest, everyone seems to just be one with nature and understand the connections. But she says, my family were all biologists of some description, with an emotional connection to the country and the knowledge of all its inhabitants, be them some slimy, scaly, feathered or furry. It hadn't even occurred to me that conservationists were necessary. Surely everyone had the ability to see, hear and feel. Surely everyone with the ability to see, hear and feel would just look at the things that needed protection. So,
which I can't relate to.
So there
I grew up, hanging out with my friends, riding our bikes through the forests, making little tree houses, but it's all like just backdropped for us having fun.
Yeah, your fun was the most important thing, not the tree that you were building in.
Us mucking around was the fun part, and like we wouldn't be captivated by the bugs and birds and stuff. Yeah.
So I think that's like, I wanted to put that in there because it shows the perception of like, oh, this is so obvious, how can anyone not see it? But for so much of the world, it's just not obvious.
When she mentions in her current, I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but she mentions in her current career where she does meet people who just don't have this intuitive, utter love and respect for the natural world.
Yeah. So it's just a bit jarring when you think this is like so innate and that everyone thinks this way.
Yeah. It made me think of like, if your kid grows up in the suburbs, do they just grow up with this like innate love and respect and knowledge of city planning and civil road engineering? I'm like, man, just the way they laid out the roads here, it's really inspiring. How can you not appreciate it? You walk through it every day.
Yeah.
It's just background to most people.
But what's interesting is, so this did not inspire her to become a conservationist because she thought, there's no need to become a conservationist. Like, there's just nature's everywhere and everyone respects it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't on her like career priority to get into conservation.
Well, her true passion was media, TV,
media.
film.
Yeah. And she said that when she was a kid and she was lying in bed, she would present her shows to the fake camera that was in her roof. I remember like when I was a kid, and you just lie in bed. You get sent to bed so early, like 8 o'clock or 7:30 or something, and there's just so much time before you fall asleep for your mind to wander. But I love that vision of little kid Lynette performing her or presenting her TV shows to her imaginary audience in the sky.
I think that's a very popular thing. I know I used to do that.
Yeah.
It's just very cathartic to like pretend you're on a night TV show being interviewed.
Yeah.
Like, man, you're so amazing.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself.
I never did that, but I used to pretend I was at different occasions, like maybe award shows or funerals or weddings or 21st parties, and I was giving speeches.
Yeah?
I would just fantasize about the speeches I would give to different people in my life.
There you go.
I know. So she started off like that and really passionate about presenting and media. And then after that, I think she had the idea of being an English teacher.
Well, that's what people just told her. Like,
yeah.
That's a throwaway dream. That's never going to happen.
Don't be a presenter.
Just be an English teacher, then you can just have a job.
You're from England. You should teach English.
You can already speak English, probably.
Yeah.
It'll be easy to teach.
It's cool that like both of these blogs I think are English.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to the English out there represented in this week's episode.
No, what? It wasn't. I believe Amber was from Wales.
Oh, from Wales.
Don't
sorry.
call her English.
Sorry, Amber. Is it still in the UK?
What? Well, famously recently, not that
Okay.
united, but yeah.
The ununited kingdom.
the British Isles.
Yeah.
They're all British.
I get so confused between the UK, the British Isles.
The whole world
Britain.
does, don't worry. It's only them they care about.
Okay. We're so ignorant over here in Australia.
Yeah.
We just have one big landmass and we just keep to ourselves.
Yeah.
So she started off wanting to be in presenting, got kind of like coaxed into thinking she'd be an English teacher. But then as she grew up, the need to be a conservationist suddenly became more apparent to her as she grew out of her small town and she started to see other parts of the world and how it was being treated. So she ended up going to Indonesia and finding a frog biologist in the middle of the rainforest. And she's like, whoa, this is something I could do. Like, I love frogs. I could be a frog biologist. There's got to be jobs in frog biology.
Well, here's this frog biologist just being themselves.
Yeah, having a job. But she knew that's not what her friends and family were expecting. Like, don't do media. Okay, I'll be a frog biologist. So, turns out she didn't have enough grades for a master's in conservation. So she just started reaching out to all these people all over the world to see if she could just get a job somewhere.
She's no Amber with just
7
phenomenal.
degrees.
any coursework is immediately good at it.
Yeah, no. But then she ended up finding a 3-month contract in an amphibian research institute in the States, which kind of opened the doors for her. Then she, with that experience, was able to go on and do a master's and a PhD. And then she kind of fell into this amazing balance between her love of media and her love of frogs. So she says, and she says again, why can't I speak? 12 years, 1 master's degree and a PhD later, I was not only hankering after the glamour of a media career, but I'd also come to recognize the value of conservation through storytelling. The accessibility of television and film in particular makes them amazing outreach tools. And although the nature of television is changing, the popularity of the screen medium continues to grow. And I got really lucky for a second time. When I was a PhD student, I sat on an advisory board for a sustainability course. There, I met a TV producer who was looking for someone to fact-check a children's wildlife show, and the rest, they say, is history. So, she finally got into a position where she was able to balance frogs and biology and wildlife with media and TV presenting. And I think like that's so cool that she kind of had this parallel life of caring about media and presenting and wildlife, and she just carried that throughout her whole life, this dichotomy of both. So now she is a science media professional who prevents, writes and researches science stories.
Presents.
Oh, presents. What did I say?
Prevents.
Oh, prevents. No, she presents. She presents, writes and researches science stories, and she has also worked on films, podcasts, and she founded the famous, is famous here because it's in Victoria, Frogs Victoria, which my circle of friends...
Famous, you say?
Or,
so I read that and I thought, I wonder if that's the Victoria in Australia, because I've never heard of Frogs Victoria, and I don't think she's talking about the same Victoria
so
in Australia.
I know, because Angie's really involved in it, and from the other podcast, but there's a lot of herpers here in Victoria that also do, like on Instagram, a Frog Friday, where every Friday they'll all post their frogs. And it's just so wholesome. So I know like a lot of people involved in Frogs Victoria here, which is I think why it meant something to me when I read it. But obviously Todd and probably all of you have never heard of it. But it's like so amazing that she'd been able to balance like her media and presenting love with science, because she realized that how she best conserves is through storytelling and education. And I can relate a lot to this. So instead of media and presenting, I kind of ended up finding that the way that I love doing conservation the most is through teaching. So I relate to wanting to share the stories of wildlife more than I want to be out with the frog biologist trudging through swamps. And also my frog friends here...
Which is fine if you want to do that.
My frog friends here in Victoria stay up all night looking for frogs, because you go out at night when they start chirping away. And as a bird person, there's no way I can get up in the morning to look at birds while also being up all night looking at frogs.
You have to pick one.
Yeah, I just don't think the schedule of the frog life is for me. But yeah, I just think these are two really great examples about how you can get skills outside of conservation but really lend themselves to finding your perfect niche job in the conservation industry. And the fancy scientist, Stephanie Schuttler, she is a great lonely conservationist as well. She talks a lot about how a lot of people think that they have to go into science if you're in conservation, but there's so many other careers outside of science and academia that can lead you to protecting wildlife and conserving wild spaces, like conservation technology, which I think Todd is really amazing at. I
was wondering when you're going to drag me into this topic.
I'm going to drag you into this topic, but I'm just saying, like, you never had to do a science degree. You never have to publish papers to design, like, niche tracking devices for turtles. Like, if you know how to tinker and create technological devices, if you know how to, like, create bespoke technology and apply it to fulfilling a goal to achieve, like, conservation goals, then that's all you need. Is like, you don't need to know anything about the turtle except for the like what specifically defines the parameters of what you need to build, if that makes sense. Like the only parts of the turtle you need to know are maybe like the depth that it swims, that it's like in the ocean, so the device needs to be waterproof.
Give me the specifications
the specs
of a turtle.
So this is why I feel like anyone can be a conservationist, because basically, Todd was so useful in conservation with zero conservation training. And I guess what makes it really great for Lynn and for Amber is that they also have conservation training. So it kind of gives them a bit of a leg up. But even if you're deciding to get into conservation for the very first time, if you're an architect, you could move into designing zoo enclosures or aquariums or greenhouses. If you're like an IT person, you could build apps and software for tracking animals, for storing data. Like, there's just so much you can do for conservation with any career pathway, I think.
Yeah. Like, you don't have to know everything about frogs.
Yeah.
To help the frogs.
Exactly.
Sometimes the frogs just need, like, a little fence around them. You need to be a carpenter to build it. And now the frogs got their own little space.
Yeah, you just need to send your person the specs of the frogs, and then they'll work to your specification.
How would you build a frog tracker?
I don't know, because they breathe through their skin, so you couldn't really adhere anything to their skin.
They're a bit delicate to, like, Velcro something onto it.
Yeah. I don't know if you can track frogs. I don't
think they travel enough to need tracking.
I think, like, because frogs are indicator species, that's how you tell the health of the environment. So if they have left that environment or they're dead, then you know you need to fix the environment. You don't need to track the frogs. Yeah. So if anything, you need to track the trees. You need to track the water quality or the abundance of water. I'm not a frog expert, so if I'm talking shit, then feel free to correct me. But what can we do to help people who are not purist conservationists? How can we help them get into conservation and thrive?
Yeah. Is that how you view it? As like get all these outsiders into conservation, or would you push people who are in conservation to go get some quote unquote real world experience and skills?
Both, because as I said at the start of this podcast, I've been really inspired by this community to do the latter and to go get other skills. Because
your personal story has been very, I care about animals, I will just 100% focus my life on that.
Yeah, so I've done the opposite, and I nowadays, late into my career, for like someone in their 20s,
not that old.
Well, like the latest it possibly could be for how old I am. Like right now, I am trying to get other skills because I've realized that I got a teaching job 2 years ago that's just taking excursions in different locations of Victoria. So I teach in the forest, I teach at a marine sanctuary, I teach recycling at a school, and I just fell in love with that job because I just realized that I can be in nature and I can share that experience with people, and I didn't have to just be alone looking at ants through a magnifying glass. Like the joy of sharing the wonders of nature and how to recycle and everything with kids, that just made me feel so happy. So then I decided that this is something I wanted to do more, and Lonely Conservationist has been designing some education programs over 2020 as like just in the background. It hasn't been like a big thing that's definitely like we're working on this now and we have a due date. We've just been piecing some concepts together, and that's why I'm doing this training a training certificate, because I want to be qualified enough to design education programs, bring them to life, bring them into fruition. But I didn't really realize that teaching was something that I wanted to take super seriously, because I thought, if I get a teaching degree, I have to spend 3 years of my life like learning how to teach in a classroom, and I don't want to teach in the classroom, or I have to do a master's degree to learn how to be a primary school or a high school teacher. I had no idea until recently that I could just teach only about sustainability and only outside.
Yeah.
So
and not be stuck teaching fractions to primary school kids.
Yeah, and I think this is part of the reason why people get stuck is because they don't know what's out there. So I could never have dreamed of wanting to just be a sustainability teacher, because I thought you could only be a classroom teacher or a professor at university or something. So maybe a lot of people don't want to get into conservation because they just think it's only academia and only science. And how can you get into conservation if you don't like what you perceive your options to be? Like people out there might not know that they could study conservation alongside technology and create apps to track whale sharks. Like they might not know that that's a thing that you can even do. So maybe that's one thing, is we need to start talking more openly about the opportunities that conservationists have and the opportunities that people who don't have strict conservation degrees, what they can do to get into conservation. Because I've said it a billion times, citizen science, so easy to do. You can get so much experience from it. Like, there's so many opportunities to get into conservation if you only have credentials in something else.
Yep.
What else? Like, just say you actually really cared about being a conservationist, and you haven't just been forced into it through me and everyone listening on the podcast. Yeah. Like, what do you think would help you have more exposure to being a conservationist, or like having just a technology background? What would have helped you bring you in?
For me, it was just like seeing the needs and the problems is like the problem. So like you keep saying technology, it's a big world of engineering within that. But like, just for example, software stuff. Everyone who writes software, most of what they write is like for themselves. So there's all this like very complicated software about software. But if you're studying, frogs is the example of the episode. You know, you might be like, fuck, I wish I had this way to like keep track of this and this, or an app that did this to help with frogs. And the person who's obsessed with software is not going to know about that. Yeah. And that's really the problem.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's I don't know, I think what would really help, because this is the only way Todd knows about this, is if you're a conservationist, talk to people in your life about the bespoke problems you have. Because otherwise Todd would never have known that we need to fly drones to find orangutan nests. Like, you never would have known we need AI and machine learning to sort camera trap photos. Like, you would not know this stuff unless you'd seen me like scrolling through a billion owl photos. Like,
yeah, I saw you doing that. I'm like, oh, there's like people actively working on technology to know if there's an owl in the photo.
Yeah, so
like, that's a real thing.
I was sorting through 8,000 camera trap photos of owls to help my friend in her honours degree, because I'm a slut for camera trap photos. I just love looking through them.
You get to follow the drama of the owls.
Yeah, but it is so tedious sometimes if there's like no owl, but there's like actually I like it when there's like a weird magpie coming to suss out the owl house. But like, if there's one time I was watching a camera trap series of camera trap photos, and there was a plant that grew. It like grew in real time, and like every picture the plant was taller, and it finally grew tall, and then somebody had like come along and snapped it up, and I was like, no. But like, if it's a windy day,
the software's not going to care about that plant.
If it's a windy day, sometimes you'll just get like heaps of photos of just a tree blowing in the wind in front of the camera, and the software can like cancel all of that out.
Yeah.
So if you have friends in other genres of careers,
what I hear you saying is, if you have a friend who knows anything about technology, as Jessie puts it,
not technology,
you should tell them about your idea for an app. They would love to hear it. They will absolutely jump at the chance to build it for you.
No. Like, even if I have a question about something small, I'll ask Todd, and he might just have a simple solution or put me in the right track. But it's not even technology. Like, if you're in medicine, maybe there's something like you're in Tanzania, and there was a lake poison, and then there's some elephants that have died. Maybe like this medical professional can like help you with knowing like, oh, like I reckon there would be a crossover from human medicine to veterinary science. Like, even if it's small, there would be like a basic understanding of human anatomy that could be translated into animal anatomy. Like, the function of liver, the function of kidneys is going to be in the same in like all mammals,
right?
Except for otters, who apparently have like.
What's this
really
scenario? I don't understand.
But like, even if I'm just saying, like, if you have any other career path, if you have friends with any other career path, there may be some crossover between their career and conservation, and they may be able to help you with problems that they didn't even know exist, and that might get them into it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But for purist conservationists,
the purists,
don't be a dick.
The OGs.
If somebody is into conservation and they haven't travelled abroad, they haven't volunteered anywhere, they haven't like got hands-on fieldwork skills, don't be an elitist dickhead
Are people like that?
Yeah.
Have you come across people like that?
Oh, no, because like I am purist, so
you are that person.
Nobody's gonna come at me for this. But like, so for instance, the last chat we did was with Maria and Gus, and they felt some imposter syndrome from not having that amount of experience, and people would have if they say they're in conservation, people have expected a lot more of them and thought that they had travelled to more places and done more than they have, and they had to be like, oh no, I've only been to this one place, or I'm only like a semester into my degree, and then people are like, oh, well, why are you even talking about it? So I think like
I can relate to that when I went to a dinner at a conservation convention that you were at, and I was chatting to them about the work I was doing in Indonesia, and they were like, oh, so what university are you with? And I was like, oh, I'm not at a university at all, I work at a store. And he just literally laughed in my face.
Yeah.
I think I said it as a joke a bit, but...
No, but then I was in a conference last February, and somebody asked me what university I was with, and I said I'm not with a university, and they basically turned around and diverted eye contact. Yeah. So there is, like, the same thing happened to me. Yeah. So if you are in academia, or if you are in a, like, professional conservation job, or you've been in conservation your whole life, just be really sympathetic to how it feels to be on the other side with somebody who's already got imposter syndrome because they haven't had that much experience. They might have, like, especially Amber, she spent all this time in maths, even though she loves wildlife and probably knows a lot. She doesn't have that, like, formal training to back her up. after her, like when she left her first degree. So she's already probably feeling imposter syndrome at events and stuff of not having this extra volunteer experience. So I think it's really important, if you are a purist conservationist, to learn about the other things that they have been doing, whether it be neuroscience or maths or presenting, whatever it is, because that is their edge that's going to set them apart. It doesn't mean they're lesser than you or any less experienced. It means that they have like more ability to get into the, like, a very niche job that benefits all their skills and interests.
100%.
Yeah.
It does. I know my IT industry, we do this a lot where, like, we'll have end users, you know, the normies,
Mm-hmm.
they won't know how to use computers as well as we do.
Yeah.
And a lot of IT people will be like, oh, what idiots, you know, oh, they don't know anything. But, like, they have their own job and, you know, they're busy, you know,
Doing other stuff.
being a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't the same time as you do to learn all about computers. So, like, you know, don't judge them.
Yeah, like if you're a radiologist, you'll only know what software it takes to look at x-rays, and you won't know how to, like, troubleshoot if, like, the software breaks down, because...
Yeah.
Yeah.
If their USB drive conks up, they're not going to be like, oh, let me try, like, you know, these things. Like, they're not going to know.
Yeah, exactly. And why should they know?
Yeah.
So...
I think that, like, every industry is going to have, like, sort of snobbish people.
Yeah. Well, I think this whole point of Lonely Conservationists in general is to try to remove the snobbery. Because everyone brings something really special to the table. And the uniqueness and diversity is what sets us apart. And why are we so obsessed with conserving diversity in species, but not diversity in people? Mic drop. Because we need a diversity of skills, a diversity of backgrounds, a diversity of thought. Because if you only have strict academic people sitting at a table making decisions, where are the landowners? Where are the people that have, like, dealt with other parts of the problem and can see it in a different light? There's no point having everyone with the same skill set and the same experience at the table. It's going to do nothing for conservation.
I think people are starting to realise the value in it. Like, every big business that says a lot that they value diversity, what they usually mean is they, like you say, they want diverse skills and, like, diverse backgrounds of knowledge to, like, bring different ideas. They don't really care what gender or race you are.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem when they do factor in gender or race, and then you feel quotas of that. It doesn't ensure diversity of skills and experience. You could have, like, all academic corporate people that just happen to be of, like, diverse cultural backgrounds or diverse genders.
Yeah. They could all have the exact same knowledge and the exact same ideas, even though, you know, they have different food at home. Pretty much is their only difference.
So I guess in conclusion, no matter who you are out here, you will all have something that sets you apart, whether it be, like, no two lives are the same, no two experiences are the same, no two perceptions are the same. So you have to stop pushing down and hiding what makes you different and highlighting that, because in the end, that's what's going to give you the edge to get you further in your career. Stop trying to be like everybody else. If there's, like, one job available and 200 conservation graduates, there's like 99 people who are the same, then they might just cut out those 99 people straight away because they're not bringing anything new to the table.
If you feel like the odd one out, it means you're doing something right.
Yeah, you're doing something right. I saw a lame quote back in the day, be the Cheerio in a world full of, what are those really disgusting ones? The little boring...
Fruit Loops?
Oh yeah, be a Fruit Loop in the world full of Cheerios. I was like describing Cheerios.
If I was in a world of Fruit Loops and I was a Cheerio, I would feel weird.
Yeah, you have to be a Fruit Loop in a world full of Cheerios. That's the real saying. So ignore the other one.
I like how there's obvious connotations for Cheerios and Fruit Loops.
Yeah, well, I don't even like the taste of Cheerios. It's probably an unpopular opinion, but they have no personality.
If you're going to have a sugary cereal, just go all out and get Fruit Loops.
Yeah. If you're going to have personality, just make it as bright and sweet as possible. So you came for a conservationist podcast and you left with a cereal party. Thank you for listening into this episode, and I hope that you have been enjoying them all so far. If you want to see more blogs just like Lynette's and Amber's, head over to the website at www.lonelyconservationist.com. You can join the community on Instagram at Lonely Conservationist, Twitter at Lonely Conserve. You can even support us on Patreon at patreon.com/lonelyconservationist. And have you read my book yet? Have you done it? If you haven't, now would be a really good time to support me. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to the podcast and being a part of the Lonely Conservationist family, and I'll see you again next week. Bye!